Another thing I wanted to do this morning was just kind of catch myself up on and get everybody caught up on, if you're not, some of these draft picks with the helps of our friends Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur that were selected by the Green Bay Packers. Packers had 8 total selections when all was said and done. Did get active in the undrafted free agent class, of which I've heard of none of those guys. Well, there's a long snapper from Wisconsin. I think the Packers always should have a Wisconsin guy on their team, no matter what. I don't care what position he plays. I don't care if it's a wide receiver. I don't care. There needs to be one guy. I think we can all agree on that. So, first guy they took was from Arizona, Jordan Morgan. He is an offensive lineman from Arizona. He's played guard a bunch, but he would qualify as a left tackle. And I'm not sure you're going to see him starting right away, with the offensive line potentially being Walker, Jenkins, Myers, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom. They've been really big on wanting to have the best 5 be the offensive line. And I think that's why some people, and this is fine, I'm not saying it's not, but some people were not too in love with the pick right away because you wanted somebody that would start, specifically a cornerback, which the Packers ignored until way late in the draft, which might ended up have working out for them as well. But they took Jordan Morgan out of Arizona, and Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur are both kind of talking about it and thinking that, yeah, this guy, we want the best 5, but this guy will be a left tackle for us.
I think that's where you'd look. That's what he's played his whole career, and he's played a lot of football. So, but ultimately, and I know you guys love to hear me say all the time how we're going to get the best 5 out there, and I think there is some cross training that goes on along the way. But ultimately, we just got to get the best 5 that give us a chance to move the football.
I think if you were upset about the offensive pick and not going defense, you felt a little better with what the Packers were able to do in the second round, getting Edgerrin Cooper. He was another guy that people had looked at as a guy that, okay, what a perfect fit for the Packers in the second round. This guy was first all team SEC last year, 84 tackles, 8 sacks for Texas A&M, 6'2", 230. Later then, they go ahead and take Javon Bullard. He is a safety out of Georgia, so another Georgia guy. Started 12 games, missed a couple in the middle of the season. But the Packers are doing something that we talk about baseball teams doing, and that is, where's the most important part of a baseball team's defense? It's up the middle. It's the catcher, it's the pitcher, it's your guys at second, your guys at short, and then it's the center fielder. And so, at least for this draft, the strategy was, we got to build the inside of our defense from Brian Gutekunst.
Certainly, we had a lot of guys on the inside of our back end that can really run and hit. I mean, taking the linebackers and the safeties, and particularly 2 of the safeties that we took that can go play nickel as well. So really, just kind of fortifying the inside of our defense with guys who I think are going to help us right away, and then also some depth. So I think that's probably how we've gotten better.
So where do they slot then in terms of when are we going to see these guys on the field? It's a great question. It's something that we are, going to learn. We'll see the mini camp. We'll see the preseason. There's a long way to go. But if you look at maybe an initial kind of projection on a depth chart, you're going to look at Edgerrin Cooper as somebody that is shot up the ranks. It's going to be Quay Walker and maybe Edgerrin Cooper. Now, Tyron Hopper is another guy that they drafted a little bit later. They drafted Tyron Hopper in the 3rd round, so they were really looking at these guys. I probably could have lumped him in with those guys as well. Second team All-SEC, finalist for the Butkus Award with Missouri. And you might see in terms of linebacker, overall, just an overall, Quay is going to be a part of that. Edgerrin Cooper is going to be a part of that. Isaiah McDuffie, maybe Tyron Hopper. So those of you with Eric Wilson stock and Christian Welch stock, you're like, who, what? Are those any more worthwhile than actual Packer stock? But you'll probably see both of those guys. I mean, it's a 2nd round pick, 3rd round pick. You'll probably see them not just make the team, but contribute in some way. Now with the safety, they drafted a bunch of safeties. They took a lot of cracks at safety, whether it's Xavier McKinney in the offseason. Javon Bullard is probably going to line up as your second safety. Anthony Johnson Jr. from a year ago. Evan Williams, Oladapo they drafted as well. So they drafted 3 safeties. They went heavy on safeties throughout the draft, which they needed to do. Some would think, well, why didn't they also do that at cornerback? As I jump around a little bit, why didn't they also do that at cornerback? I think a lot of us were in love with Cooper DeJean right away from Iowa, eventually goes to the Eagles in a day 2 trade up. But they got Kalen King out of Penn State, and I know that's going to trigger a lot of people because Kalen King sounds like Kevin King, and that is weird. There's no doubt about it that is weird, and they play the same position. It is weird. But he was somebody that a year ago could have been projected as a first-round talent. Ohio State beat them pretty bad, and I don't know that they ever quite recovered from that. But he's somebody that it's very interesting when these guys fall to where they do. Every team passes on him many times, and then they get drafted, and everyone's like, "Oh boy, that was a great pick. That was a great pick." Like when you do your fantasy drafts, "Oh, that was a great pick." You love hearing that from your friends who have passed over this guy in every round. It's like these people mean nothing. You're trying to beat them. Oh, great pick, great pick. Whenever the fantasy room says great pick, normally it's going to be a bad pick. But this is different because it's about Packers and not fake life football.
Yeah, I think, I think our league is kind of, there's been a long history of guys that kind of felt they were overlooked and use that as motivation to drive themselves. So hopefully that'll be the case. I didn't hear that interview, so I know, he's certainly was a guy that I think expected to go higher. And as we kind of went through it, we felt very fortunate to be able to pick him where we did. He's got a really nice skill set. He played some high-level football at Penn State. I think he's got some versatility too to play outside, play nickel as well. And again, I think his best football is ahead of him as well. So I think, he's a young player. He's a 3-year player coming out. Hopefully that does drive him. I think we're going to have a very competitive secondary right now, and I feel really good about that. And it's going to be fun to watch those guys kind of excel.
So obviously they have Jair Alexander, who is without question a starting cornerback in this league, no matter what he does or we think of him or whatever. But then behind that, would these guys start on other teams? Carrington Valentine, 7th round pick a year ago. He'll compete. Nixon, they signed him. They like him, obviously, in the return game, but also in the secondary, they like him. Eric Stokes, we can't forget about Eric Stokes. Corey Ballantyne stepped up when he needed to. And then Kalen King is going to probably slot at the back end of that or maybe push up for more time. It's a good 7th round pick. It's a guy that there's been expectations. Gutekunst pretending like he didn't hear about those, but it's a good 7th round pick, a guy that they are going to put time in, invest in, and it's a low risk, high reward type of thing. There's talent there. It didn't always work out, but there is talent there, and the Packers are going to see what they can get out of him. So to recap the draft, again, I've been bouncing around, but round 1, Jordan Morgan, offensive lineman, Arizona. They go edge rusher with Edgerrin Cooper. Whether he's actually an edge rusher or not, his name's Edgerrin. He's an edge rusher to me. 2nd round, Javon Bullard as well, the safety. 3rd round, they go running back with MarShawn Lloyd. You knew at one point they would take a running back. The Braylon Allen to Green Bay dream did not work out, but they did take a running back, and it was MarShawn Lloyd. And he's going to compete right away for that RB2. Is Matt LaFleur.
I think he's a piece that, first of all, he's big. He's 220 pounds. He's got really good speed, and I think he gives us an element out the backfield. He really showcased that the week of the Senior Bowls, especially in the one-on-one situations that he was in, and just gives us a little different flavor maybe.
So you're going to have, obviously, Josh Jacobs. You're going to have A.J. Dillon. And then you're going to have MarShawn Lloyd. Now, I know that Dillon's contract doesn't – there's a lot of wiggle room. They can flat out cut this guy and not really have any penalty. Ultimately, I think A.J. Dillon is a Packer in 2024 for the duration of the season. But that 3rd running back, you see a Patrick Taylor, or you see, who's now with the Niners, I believe, You've seen Emmanuel Wilson. They will fight. They will wow us. There'll be a 60-yard run that they rip off in game 3 of the preseason, and we're going to be like, oh, my God, is Ellis Merriweather going to make this team? Well, he's not. It will be Josh Jacobs. It will be MarShawn Lloyd. And I'm pretty sure A.J. Dillon will also make the team. I would bet on that if I had to. That 3 of a running back room. They've got, not to be Mike McCarthy, but they've got a lot of vested in A.J. Dillon. I just think that there is a role for A.J. Dillon that a lot of teams would want. There's a role for A.J. Dillon that the Packers would want. Lead back is not that role. 2nd and 1 is not that role. Nor is 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. Maybe 3rd and 3. 3rd and 3 because you'll get us 2, and then we can find another way to get the 1. Yeah, I like that. After that, Tyron Hopper, as I mentioned, the linebacker out of Missouri. Evan Williams is a safety out of Oregon. He's going to go into that mix at safety where it's a completely new room, which we talked about a little bit ago. There's a lot of changes in that secondary room, specifically at safety, where a lot of guys of the past are long gone. I can't even remember them off the top of my head. Jacob Monk, they drafted him round 5, center, Duke. There's a lot of, these like, hey, what was the Packers' best value pick? A lot of people are going with Jacob Monk in that category. Packers certainly happy to get him. He did some work at the Senior Bowl, and the Packers kind of caught an eye to him.
Yeah, really, first of all, he's a really good player. He's very quick. He's very strong, powerful, man. He can play guard. He can play center. So he's got the versatility that we like. He's a 2-time captain. I think he started 50-some games there with the kind of the NIL and the COVID rules. So he's shown to be exceptionally durable over a long time at a position that's hard to be. So, just the more we got to know him as a person and all the things coming out of there, it was he really felt like, he was a fit for what we're trying to do, not only athletically and what he could do on the field, but just, kind of the grit and determination that you have to be a really good player in that room.
And it was actually Travis Glover, the lineman from Georgia, that they saw at the Senior Bowl. Tim Shea, if you could edit that in post. But they still like Jacob Monk, no matter what I said. Tim, please make sure you edit this, please. Oladapo again, I mentioned Oladapo at safety. Travis Glover then, the offensive lineman. 7th round, they took Kalen King. And then the one guy we haven't mentioned yet is Michael Pratt. They took a quarterback. Now, is he going to have a better pro career than J.J. McCarthy? I think a lot of people have made that comparison. I saw that tweet going around. I don't know. But people seem to like this pick too. 6'2", 217 out of Tulane. Last year started 11 games, 65% completion rate, 2,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, 5 picks, and he did have 5 rushing touchdowns as well. So I don't know how much you caught Tulane. Usually I am a big daily fantasy guy, no matter what. This guy was still not on my radar, but he was on the Packers' radar, and he will probably serve as a backup to Jordan Love. Would you give it to him right away? Do you want a Sean Clifford in there? I mean, backup quarterback's an important position. I've been talking about this with the Falcons. It's an important position. It's okay to have a good backup quarterback. The Sean Clifford, Michael Pratt battle is going to feed families. Hat tip Grant in the preseason. Alex Magoo, remember him, USFL MVP? He was in the quarterback room earlier this week. Now he's going to be a wide receiver, which I'd say it's tougher for him to make the team as a wide receiver than it is a quarterback, but it's probably the exact same chances of nil. So Pratt, a guy that they take, Michael Pratt, out of Tulane. He's a quarterback, so these picks always get a little more attention, which means I have both Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur talking about their new QB3.
Obviously a winner. He really turned that program around, started a lot of games for him. I think he won 21 or more games over the past 2 years. He's a good athlete. He's got a pretty live arm, very accurate. Just kind of like the way he handled himself in the games that he played. Had some big wins. We were excited. I mean, I wanted to add a quarterback. A bunch of them went early, and so there wasn't a lot of guys available in the mid rounds. And as we got later and later, he was kind of the only one left that we really wanted to target, and we were able to get him, which was nice.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that he definitely is a tough, fearless thrower, and to me, that's a prerequisite for the position. You got to be able to stand in there and throw in muddy pockets, throw in the face of pressure, and I think he exhibited that. I think he's a winner. So, we were excited. We were kind of shocked that he was still there in the 7th.
So Matt LaFleur clearly made all that up. He's got no idea who they drafted. Yeah. Oh, well, how would you answer a question about a quarterback you have no idea? You've never seen him. Oh, he's a good thrower of the football. I mean, goodness. We know everybody that went in the first round, and then nobody went until the 5th round with Spencer Rattler. So that'd have been a little different if the Packers got him. Jordan Travis going to the Jets. I think that's a good pick there. Joe Milton should be interesting in New England. Yes, they took Drake May. I don't think this is a competition anytime soon. This is a depth spot or a practice squad spot. Devin Leary then was the other quarterback that went besides Michael Pratt, the last quarterback taken. So good value. Many thought he'd be off the board by then, but good value. And I think that's what you're looking for in the 7th round. Again, it'll be interesting to see. Sean Clifford had some moments. He had enough moments where people in towns under 1,200 wanted him to be the starter. I'm not saying anything. That's just statistical facts. I did a breakdown. I am not saying anything. I actually did a study. I went town to town and found out that in population towns under 1,200, there was a lot more Sean Clifford vote than there was Jordan Love vote. That's all I am saying. They just liked him. So I don't know where Michael Pratt fits in, but we'll find out. So that's kind of a overview along with Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur of who the Packers took, what they expect out of them, where they think they're going to land in the depth chart, and what to think going forward. Again, no cornerback until very late, no wide receiver. There was no need for one. They shored up defensively where they needed to. I think there's still some left to be desired, but I also think they had a good selection. This was a very Gutekunst draft. This is the draft that we know. Hey, there's a position you need. We're going to take 3 of these guys. Okay. There's a quarterback late. Sure. A running back. Of course. The position that we all think we really, really need. Oh, we'll take that at the very, very end. Very Gutekunst draft. Nothing different about this one than the other ones that we have seen in the past. And I think he has, for the most part, a pretty good track record on these kind of things. So we'll see again how it all settles. And I don't think where the Packers were drafting, there was like one guy away. Get this guy. He's going to be a big impact guy right away. One guy away. We know that left tackle's been a problem. They can move guys around, but they don't want to run into a situation where an offensive lineman gets hurt and it inadvertently cost them 2 Super Bowls. So they went depth there. So good marks from me. I'll give him an A because I'm a fan, but I'll give him an A- to just seem a little more critical. And that is the Into the Winklerverse Packer Draft Breakdown.